hello, and welcome to the PGH Writing Command Center for another podcast episode from God Bless the Cake Publishing LLC. And even though we have all that cool intro music, I still like that guy. Whatever. Hey, I am Paul John Hausleben of God Bless the Cake Publishing LLC, and I am the flagship author, chief photographer, music reviewer, music critic, do everything guy here at God Bless the Cake Publishing LLC with a little help from my friends. And some of my friends are gathered here today for this another rated series podcast episode where today Paulie gets into the weeds with one of his favorite bands, Jethro Tull. And we're going to rate the 5 best studio albums of the legendary progressive rock, folk prog. Oh my gosh, so hard to classify the amazing music of Jethro Tull. But today's the day when we finally get into it. And a lot of folks have been saying, Paulie, when you got to get into Jethro Tull? You know so much about Tull. And hey, today is the day, right? Yeah, thank you. But before we get into all that yakety smackety doodah, let's get our little orphan Annie decoder pins out and let me rattle papers in the background here for dramatic effect. And this podcast is proudly sponsored by Corporate Facilities Group Incorporated, the leader in technical consulting, facilities maintenance, facilities management and operations, as well as property maintenance and management services throughout America. And now, CFG Incorporated is proud to announce a new department, a new initiative headed up by the amazing Mr. Steve McMillan. Steve brings as many years of experience as he manages pre-construction services and estimating for residential development, residential renovations, and light commercial projects for CFG Incorporated. So, before you spend big bucks on a project, let old Steve Aruski check out the contractor scope and price to make sure your hard-earned money is going in exactly the right place. Check CFG out on the web at www.corporatefacilitiesgroup1.com. That's www.corporatefacilitiesgroup1.com. Or you can click and clink on the little link who's in the podcast episode website, and it'll let the magic of the internet take you to the CFG website. So clinking and clacking and whatever, we really thank Lydia and Steve and Liliana and Summer the doggy and Smokey the kitty cat at CFG Incorporated for sponsoring the podcast. Thank you so much. And if you would like to sponsor this podcast, just send us an email at godblessthecake@gmail.com, and we will be sure to check out your situation. And hey, I'm from New Jersey, let's make a deal. And also, if you have some charity events or special events, I know the holidays are coming up. Halloween's already in the rearview mirror. My goodness gracious. And we do have one if you are in the Richmond, Virginia area. The Virginia War Memorial on Veterans Day. Let's hear it for our veterans. Absolutely. Yeah. November 11th, 2025, which is Veterans Day, from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Virginia War Memorial, is the 69th annual Commonwealth Veterans Day ceremony, guest speakers, patriotic music, and recognition of the winners of the Virginia War Memorial's Veterans Day Student Essay Contest. I love that. Love young folks writing essays. Wow. The writer in me just makes me tremble. It's at the Virginia War Memorial, 621 South Belvedere Street in Richmond, Virginia, 23220. If you need more information, you can go to the website. It is Victor Alpha, the Virginia War Memorial, vawarmemorial.org. And check it out. That's a fantastic event for Veterans Day. Thank you so much to the person sending that to me, and we appreciate that. And if you have special events, charities, you want Paulie to mention on the podcast, I'll be glad to do so. It's getting near that holiday time. We got Thanksgiving. We got the Christmas coming up, so it's going to get jammed with special events. So send them ahead. Thank you so much. So here we are in the fall of the year. Halloween's now in the rearview mirror, and it's hard to believe that this year is just flying by. But thank you to everyone who commented and sent me emails and met me in person and commented on the spooky season part one, part two, the Halloween special podcast we did, and I got such amazing feedback, and it was very, very popular, and I thank everybody. And even the folks who said, Paulie, how can you doubt this stuff? I remain neutral and just told the stories from a neutral standpoint. And some of the people were actually kind of, I know that they were siding on the side of the ghosts, even though I had like 100 disclaimers during the podcasts. But anyway, I really, hey, you can listen to them. I left the door open. But at any rate, really, thank you so much. We really appreciate the support, and it was a fun Halloween. It was a great season, and now we shift gears and we get into Thanksgiving's coming up. I love Thanksgiving. Don't skip Thanksgiving. Christmas will come, but let's get through Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving. I love the fall of the year, and as I've mentioned many times. So here we are, the 5 best studio albums of Jethro Tull. And Paulie has a long-time relationship with Jethro Tull, and it's been a very, very important, inspirational part of my life, not only in my music influences and loving music as much as I do, but Jethro Tull, really, I can credit Jethro Tull with pushing me back into writing. And we'll get to that real quick. It's a well-worn story. But this podcast is rating. It's part of the rated series. It's time I got back to it, and it's long overdue to rate the 5 best studio albums of Jethro Tull. So first, before we get into all that meat and potatoes, let me pose a question. How is Jethro Tull not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And I'm just going to say that. And nothing against Chubby Checker, but Chubby Checker's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Jethro Tull's not. And I'll leave it at that. And I think I need to establish something right off the bat because there's so much confusion with Jethro Tull. And I admit, their music is difficult to get into. There's an awful lot going on with Jethro Tull. Jethro Tull is not the kind of band that you spin a couple records, with a few exceptions. Maybe some of the releases that were single, Living in the Past, and Bungle in the Jungle, and those kind of things that could be perceived as being radio friendly. But Jethro Tull, for the most part, is not the kind of band that you sit down and just is like, oh, I love this, blah, blah. It's deep, it can be dark, it can be convoluted, it can be complex. Time signatures that go all over the place, lyrics that are like all over the place. You got the flute going on, you have all this stuff going on. It's a complex band, and they have 24 studio albums, and not to mention the compilations and the live records and Ian Anderson solo records. There's a lot going on with Jethro Tull. So for me to try to squeeze it all into this podcast, I feel I have to give a little history and a little background in my relationship with the band. And let me set this straight right away. And this is a source of confusion, and it's not anybody's fault. It's just the average fan, the average music listener. And they'll say, well, Jethro Tull, his music is really good. His music is something I never understand. I don't understand his music. And they refer to Jethro Tull as a person. And he was a person. He invented some kind of agricultural thing in England, some kind of press or some kind of mill or some kind of factory piece. He was a real person. But Jethro Tull as a band, people confuse the lead man, the front man, the great Ian Anderson, a musical genius, with being Jethro Tull. And I understand, because Ian Anderson has been the front man for all these years and the leader, and it gets confusing. But Ian Anderson is not Jethro Tull, and Jethro Tull is not Ian Anderson. They're two individuals. And, and here's another point of contention. You know, you can go, and I guarantee right now, if you go on the big search engine, pick a big search engine, and just type in leading frontmen in rock and roll, and I'm gonna bet what little hair I have on my head, and I don't have a lot of hair, right, folks? They're cheering that I don't have any hair. I don't have any hair, right? Let's try this again. That's better. I guarantee that Ian Anderson will not come up as being one of the best frontmen for a rock and roll band or a musical group of all time. I think you'll probably get Freddie Mercury. Obviously, you'll get Mick Jagger. You'll probably get Ozzy. Maybe for the latter years, Kurt Cobain. You'll get Jim Morrison. You get Robert Plant. You get all those more common and popular. You'll never see Ian Anderson. Just like I'm going to cross over, you probably won't see Mark Knopfler with Dire Straits either. However, I'm going to make the case here. Let's put Knopfler on the shelf till we do Dire Straits podcast. Ian Anderson is probably the greatest frontman ever of a band in rock and roll. With the hair going on and the crazy tight outfits and the high boots. And a shout out to my good buddy Jeff, the musical genius Jeff, who commented that it always seemed like Ian Anderson's like 6'5", and the rest of the band is so short in comparison. And we looked it up, and he's only 5'9". But it seems like he's larger than life, and standing on the one foot and playing the flute, and all the eccentric, and his eyes bugging out. And what a great entertainer! What a fantastic frontman! And I had the pleasure of seeing Jethro Tull a number of times, and I saw the great Madison Square Garden concert years and years ago around the Aqualung tour. And there was no better live performance. And I mean, I've seen Springsteen and The Who and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Yes, and Meatloaf, and it goes on and on. My goodness. For Aqualung, they had the quiet piano, and this the lights are down, and you see this guy who's dressed as a vagabond coming out, and you think he's using a walking cane, but it's really the flute. And then the opening to Aqualung starts, and he throws the vagabond disguise off, and he goes on the one foot, and it's Ian Anderson, and his cane is really his flute, and he starts playing. It's just, what an amazing entertainer. But I'm going to guarantee, if you Google it now, use the big search engines, whichever one you pick, Ian Anderson will not come up as a great frontman. It's just a travesty, an absolute travesty. So to get into the relationship, Paulie, with Jethro Tull. So, it's a well-worn story. I probably told it 100 times, but I go back to living in Atlanta. I'm on the road. I don't know anybody. And during the week, I was real busy. We were busy trying to keep our company going during the Great Recession. And here I am in a strange area, fish out of water, terrible New Jersey accent. I'm living in Atlanta. And a buddy of mine up north, back home, he says, Paulie, he sends me an email. He says, Paulie, I know this guy. And he sends me all the information starting up this progressive rock website. And he's looking for reviewers. And I thought of you because nobody knows prog rock like you, especially with Yes and ELP and Jethro Tull. And I sent the guy an email, and he says, hey, write me a test review on any prog rock album you want. So I picked Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull, and I sent him the test review, and he hired me, and I wrote reviews, and it got me back into writing, which got me back into the Time Bomb in the Cupboard, and et cetera, so forth. You can look it up in other Paulie writings. Therefore, I can thank Jethro Tull for biting Paulie in the backside with the writing bug again. So we have a history together. And I mentioned this before when I mentioned music and Jethro Tull. For some reason, the fall of the year is when I listen to Jethro Tull. Now, there's certain bands that invoke like seasonal things for me. I think in the summer I listen to ELO, and maybe in the spring of the year is going to be people like David Gray and some of the solo artists that I enjoy when we're coming out of the winter time. Maybe Keane is a spring band, but for me, the fall of the year means Jethro Tull, right up till Christmas, and it might be because of the prog folk, the folk influence, the English folklore. They have the three albums. Um, we have Songs from the Woods, we have Heavy Horses, and we have Stormwatch, which a lot of folks call the trilogy of Jethro Tull. Some people even put Minstrel in the Gallery in that folky prog folk category. And when the fall of the year comes, for some reason, it means Jethro Tull. And once the heat and humidity die out, I just spin Tull on my weekends and in my background music and on my playlists, and it's just Jethro Tull. And luckily, they have so much music that I have a wide variety to pick from. So I guess in the fall of the year after Halloween, it makes sense for me to do this podcast. So let's get to it finally after all that blabbing. Here's the 5 best studio albums of Jethro Tull. And I would say this has been the most difficult um, podcast rated series for me to pick the 5 best. And I have some that I've started lists on. I haven't done Dire Straits yet. I don't think I've done Yes yet. I don't think I've done ELP, some of the other folks. Um, but I think Tull was the most difficult for me and is going to be the most difficult. Not only is there a tremendous amount of musical output with the 24 studio albums, but just picking the nuances and difference and getting down to track by track. And I take this seriously, and I spun this for 2 weeks and really dissected music that I really, really know well. And I really made strong comparisons to pick these 5. And it was not easy to do. Some bands are easy. I mean, some are real easy. Now, not saying that Tull doesn't lay an egg on on some of these studio albums. And I'm going to mention A with the white jumpsuits and whatever was going on there, and Under Wraps, and jtull.com. Not my favorite, although there are some cuts on those records that are pretty good, but my goodness, some of them are awful. But when you get to the meat and potatoes of Jethro Tull, it's very, very difficult. And I even included some of the newer releases Ian Anderson has put out with the new version of Jethro Tull, if you want to call it the modern, super modern. We have Rock Flute, and we have Curious Ruminants. We have a couple new releases by Tull, which made it even a little bit more complicated for Paulie to get in there. And some of those records are pretty good. So anyway, here we are. We dissected it and diced it, and we always go 5-1. 5 being a great record, and 1 being the best, super, fantastic, unbelievable. 5-1. I don't understand how you rate the 500 best songs of all time. What's the difference between 497 and 500? What's the difference between 300 and 299? It doesn't make any sense to me. So we always go 5-1. And there's a couple on mentions here. As I said, this was very difficult. So one of the on mentions is the Jethro Tull Christmas album. And if there's ever a band, a rock and roll band, a prog rock band, however you want to classify Tull, to have released a Christmas album, it's Jethro Tull. They just fit it. Forget Paulie's, saying the fall of the year, but wow. The Jethro Tull Christmas album is a fantastic record. And I love cover art. Being a photographer, I love some of the photographs used by Jethro Tull and other bands on the cover art. And the cover art for the Jethro Tull Christmas album is fantastic. Just check out the cover art. If you don't do anything else, you can bring it up on the big search engines. But this is a great record, and I just love this. I remember when this came out, and I was living in an apartment at the time, and it was a tough time for me. I was between jobs and between situations, and it was really, really a difficult time at that Christmas time. It might have been the first Christmas time I was alone in a long, long time. And I'm living on the road in this apartment, and for my primary source of income, and I picked up the Jethro Tull Christmas album. It was around 2002, 2003, I think. I do all this from a stream of consciousness from my memory, so I can't make mistakes. So please forgive me. But what a great record. And it's obvious the boys aren't in the studio all at the same time when they laid this down. They recorded the tracks separately and then dubbed it all together. And it's fantastic. I just love this record. And you can spin it any time of the year. It's got Jack Frost and the Hooded Crow, Last Man at the Party, with all kinds of great Ian Anderson British humor in there. First Snow on Brooklyn, Fire at Midnight, We Five Kings, which is basically We Three Kings in 5/4 time, Ring Out Solstice Bells, and one of the few songs included on a studio album not written by Ian Anderson, because Ian was a primary songwriter for all these years. Snowscape, written by Martin Barr. Jethro Tull Christmas album, honorary mention. The other on mention is Benefit. Now, Benefit, oh, let me think. So we have This Was with Mick Abrahams, right? So we have and Ian, and then they had a little parting of the ways because Mick wanted to go blues, blues rock, and Ian Anderson had his own ideas. So then we had Stand Up, and then we have Benefit, yes. So Benefit is an on mention, and what a great record this is. I struggled not to put Benefit higher up. Like even at one point I had it at number 3. Except there's a couple cuts. And like I said, I got down to track and did a rating system. The old Ben Franklin decision making. and there's great cuts on this record, Benefit. And I'm going to call this a riff record. Martin Barr is outstanding on this record with his electric guitar. And it's great songwriting. But there's a couple songs that are a little bit weaker. Sun is a little weaker. I love the first song, With You There to Help Me. It's got this spacey, hippie intro. It's got this reverb on the flute, and it's just fantastic. You got Teacher on there. Nothing to Say. You have the bizarre Saucity, You Are a Woman. Saucity being a made-up word that Ian came up with as a placeholder for society, and it's got a piano in there, piano and keyboards introduced for probably the first time in Jethro Tull's history, and it's only their third record, right? Yeah, third. So, and I put it as an on-mentioned, even though it has some great tracks on there. There's some weaker tracks, but certainly Benefit is a great Jethro Tull record. 1969, maybe 1970, somewhere in there. And it's Jethro Tull and Ian Anderson finding their way. No question, Aqualung was coming up. You can hear it. And it's a riff record. I'm going to say it has a lot of guitar riffs because that was popular at the time. Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin all putting these albums out that were based upon strong guitar riffs. And certainly Benefit is up there. So those are our mentions. Number 5 is Crest of the Knave. the amazing 1989 Grammy for heavy metal goes to Crest by Jethro Tull, and everybody fell over because it's not heavy metal, and Metallica loses out to Jethro Tull. This is the 16th studio album by Jethro Tull, and Crest is special. And no, it's not heavy metal. And Ian Anderson had a theory that it was kind of like everybody felt sorry for Jethro Tull never winning a Grammy, so it was time for them to win a Grammy. And I love Metallica when they won the next year for the heavy metal at the Grammys. They thanked Jethro Tull for not putting out a heavy metal album that year. I think that's fantastic. Yeah, right? It's not heavy metal, but I mean that doesn't mean it doesn't rock hard. Martin Barr is really on fire in this record. This is a great record. Steel Monkey rocks real hard. Farm on the Freeway, one of the best Tull records for a longer single, a longer cut. It's got some great piano and some great lyrics and some great meaning. It's about a farmer who loses his farm to the freeway coming through. Raising Steam, Mountain Men. These songs rock hard. No, it's not heavy metal, but these are rockers. It's a great record. And one of the best aspects of the record, at least for me, because I'm such a huge Dire Straits fan and Mark Knopfler fan, there was something going on with Ian Anderson's voice. He had an operation on his throat, and something was going on. And he does his best impersonation on the vocals of Mark Knopfler. He sounds like Knopfler. It sounds like a Dire Straits record. And his voice has got this Knopfler-like hoarseness to it. And it's just a great record. And what elevates Crest, in my opinion, is Budapest. Now, Budapest, someday I'll do the 5 best songs of Jethro Tull, which is another really almost impossible task for a guy like me. But certainly Budapest is going to get consideration. What a great, great song. It is so impactful, and I love the lyrics. I love the vocal delivery by Ian Anderson, particularly the last verse. That song impacted me so much in one of my flash fiction books, and I can't tell you which one it was. It might have been Flash 4. I actually wrote a flash fiction piece called Long Legs and Beer, or Long Legs and Wine. I wrote so many stories I can't remember. But it was inspired by the song Budapest. And there's a certain element of sadness. It's about a woman that's like a backstage gal who's doing catering during the concerts. And they're in Budapest and Hungary. And she's apparently gorgeous gal. And she's setting up the wine, beer, the sandwiches for after the concert. And Ian's writing about her. And for lack of a better word, maybe even lusting a little bit after her. And but the last verse is quite sad. It's a reflection that Ian does, and it's just a great Tull song. So there we go. Number 5 is Crest of the Knave. Number 4 is Aqualung. And a lot of Tull aficionados might say, "God, Paulie, you're nuts. Aqualung's fantastic. It should be number 1. It should be number 2. What?" I love Aqualung, and this is where Martin Barr is just shining on this, and the songwriting comes together. Everything comes together for Jethro Tull on Aqualung, and as good as the other albums are, this is really the album that propelled them to stardom. It's got great cover art, and Ian Anderson's wife at the time, Jenny. I think it's Jenny Franks or Jenny Marks. Anyway, she was a photographer. She took some pictures in the inner urban areas, slum areas of London, and she captured this homeless person, and it just inspired Ian to write the whole record. And there's a lot of religious things on the record. My God is one of the cuts, and Cross-Eyed Mary, the great Locomotive Breath, with one of the great intros of all rock and roll music. So there's a lot of inspiration that Ian used here, and a lot of people are like, it's Ian Anderson's protest against religion, and you could interpret it that way, but you could also interpret it the other way, that Ian Anderson's really very, very respectful of religion. It's a very complex, as is all Tull's music, and of course the guitar solo by Martin on Aqualung is one of the best guitar solos in all of rock and roll that nobody mentions. It's a fantastic record. Aqualung comes in at number 4. Number 3 is the aforementioned, and I should also mention the great drumming by I guess it's Clive's. Clive's still around on Aqualung, right? I'm doing all this from memory. So, um, great musicianship on Aqualung. So, I want to point that out. So, Songs for the Woods comes in at number 3, and Songs from the Woods is probably the album that inspires Paulie to say, "Oh my goodness gracious." The fall of the year means Jethro Tull, and it's inspired by a book that Ian Anderson got from a manager. I believe it's from one of his managers about English folklore. And he read this book and was fascinated by it. And he starts to dissect it and wrote a lot of songs that have songs from the woods. They're inspired by this folklore. And The Whistler is one of my favorite displays of Ian Anderson's amazing talent at not only songwriting, but also playing wind instruments. And The Whistler is just something that I whistle to. I just love it. Cup of Wonder, Hunting Girl, Fire at Midnight, Ring Out Solstice Bells, which makes its appearance on the Jethro Tull Christmas album in a different form, Jack and the Green, and of course the title cut. It's kind of like the supernatural folks who live in old England in the woods, and it just inspires you to all kinds of things. So this is definitely folk rock. There's no question. Songs from the Woods comes in at number 3 on Paulie's list. Number 2. Oh wow. And this record and number 1, I flip-flopped and went back and forth before I finally make a decision. And I only made the decision early today before I laid this podcast down. And that's how tough it was for me. But number 2 is Stand Up, which is the second record, second long player by Jethro Tull. And it's got that famous, if you can find the old vinyl, and I had the old vinyl, and unfortunately lost a lot of my vinyl collection in a flood I had in a house years ago. And the rest of it I had to just get rid of because I had no storage for it. But Stand Up is a masterpiece. And I marvel at the fact that Ian Anderson is about 22, 23 years old when he's writing this record. It's amazing. A new day yesterday. Jeffrey goes to Leicester Square, Boré, back to the family, look into the sun. Nothing is easy. And there is a lot of blues on this. There's no question. There's a little bit of blues rock. I shouldn't say a lot. There's a little. Fat Man, which is a Ian Anderson British humor, elevating the overweight folks and how wonderful their lives really are. It's Ian Anderson at his best with offbeat humor. He's not being offensive by any means. We Used to Know, which is the great controversial song which Eagles used to create Hotel California from. And you can, I covered this in another podcast, but you can look it up. There's a lot of videos on this where Eagles were a touring band, opening band years ago for Jethro Tull, and I guess they heard the song and We Used to Know, and it made its appearance in Hotel California. But We Used to Know, and Ian Anderson, he was like, whatever. He let it ride. He didn't go to court and plagiarism and all that stuff, but it's quite obvious. We used to know, written in 1968, is really been borrowed, I'll say, by Eagles for Hotel California, and that is on Stand Up, and you can look that up. But Reasons for Waiting is another great cut on there. Maybe Ian Anderson's best love song. It's a beautiful, beautiful melody with fantastic flute work on there. In fact, overall, the musicianship on this record is knockout. As great as Barrymore Barlow is for Tull, and I want to say he took over at Minstrels of the Gallery, living in the past, right after Aqualung with Clive Bunker going off to other pursuits. He got married and met a gal and wanted to do other things. But Clive Bunker on this record overall is amazing, as is Glenn Cornick on bass. And their percussion on this, and it might have been the way it was engineered and recorded, but it's just outstanding. And Clive Bunker is no slouch on drums, and they're featured very prevalent on this record. But Reasons for Waiting is just a beautiful, beautiful song. So I really struggled, and I mentioned the cool lawn playing, the old cardboard. You used to open it up, and all the little band guys would stand up. They had little cardboard guys, and when you open up the album, they'd stand up. It was just fantastic stuff. And if you can pick up the Steven Wilson stereo remix, Steven Wilson of Porcupine Tree, who does a lot of engineering and remix on old progressive rock. It really makes that drums and the bass stand out. Steven Wilson did a great job on that remix. For A Thousand Mothers is the last cut, and like I said, I struggled really hard to pick between 1 and 2. So Stand Up comes in at 2, and number 1 is Thick as a Brick. And Thick as a Brick is basically one song. It's just one big song, and there's only one song, one cut on the whole record, and of course it's a spoof record. Ian Anderson wrote it because people said, "Oh, you have concept albums and you have passion plays and you have all these things," and he's like, "I just write stuff, but I'm gonna write you a real spoof," and of course the famous newspaper article cover. With the St. Cleve Chronicles, and Judge disqualifies little Milton in a rumpus over his essay that he wrote. And it's basically a little boy who writes an essay for grammar school about life and all his displeasures and society, and it's like a controversial essay, and he wins the award, and it's all spoof. It's all spoof by Ian Anderson. He pulls it off beautiful. But the amazing thing about Thick as a Brick is, I can relate to it because it's kind of like Paulie on a podcast. I start in one direction, and I go off on a tangent, and then I finally come back and I bring it all around, and I'm able to wrap it all up and come back to my original theme. That's Thick as a Brick. Ian Anderson is all over the place, and he eventually winds his way back and comes back to the original theme. And how it ends is a classic melody, classic songwriting, and just an amazing composition. So Thick as a Brick comes in at number 1, and I think if I ever do my top prog records of all time, albums of all time, I think you'll see Thick as a Brick make another appearance. And as opposed to like a Stand Up, Thick as a Brick is straight prog rock. It's straight progressive rock. So there we go. We have, just to recap, honorary mentions. We've got Jethro Tull Christmas album benefit. We got Crest of the Nave. We got Aqualung, Songs for the Woods, Stand Up, and Thick as a Brick. There we go. Jethro Tull's 5 best studio albums. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it, and thank all the folks who send us emails and download our podcast. It's really appreciated. Hey, please be kind, be gentle, be very tolerant. Remember, kindness is for free. Spread it around as much as you can. It can only make this world a better place. And people say, "Oh, Paulie, you're an expert on jazz." Nah, what do I know? I don't know anything. I'm just a guy from Patterson, New Jersey. And we appreciate it. Hey, we'll see you next time. Let me figure out how to get all these people out of here. And thank you for tuning in. Bye bye for now.